Today is day 13, January 2023. We will move from the point we stopped, considering the effort currently, the risk report 2024 tracejanuary.blogspot.com. You will check please at the headlines of this blog as a humble contribution pro bono, exposing patterns of aggressions we suffer. And it wasn't to be like this, but indeed turn into it. So we kind of are carrying a struggle to be who we are and do not change by hands that put qualifications that in general do not belong to our lives. And this can go against anyone as an individual or a moral entity, and its named person in Brazil by the legal system is told that she is an individual, a moral entity, or a state, an entire community, and this is kind of enough strong to understand that the kind of threats at the power as power misuse her interest since individual until the global community. And of course that she only goes by the architecture of power if corrupted and with tolerance. This as a career, I would say, but indeed it's a criminal career in front of the eyes as everybody. Then we will move kind of at the risk report with this month. I would say we will have some very curious traces that kind of are the same complaint as usual. We will observe that if we require to consider the plea bargain on embassy with clemency by cases as capital punishment because the act has no excuse, and the architecture has criminal system formed by Brazil and peers considered and kept the aggressions and the misconduct, indeed they deny it the interest and the right just have the and it's not the right, but it's a clause, I would say, at the plea bargain that was refused because they kept the thing so they can suffer the consequences. Capital punishment totally affordable, it's their own self-determination. Brazil has a theory which is the finalism of action, told that the specific hands, sometimes on those hands can do the crime, but Brazil do not believe at this criminal theory, and in the same way has a theory about the self-determination of the actors at the procedure or whatever, but this time Brazil will say that do not believe at this. It has told that not even God can change the facts and circumstances of something notorious, but Brazil also do not believe at their own speech and try to change things by fake data and false records in our ways. Since subsidiary until economy, it's the entire conjunction. So, but it's Brazil. Then we will check that our model is flawless and help a lot. We will have that the war. If you have the war, you consider the war something that has a sequence of acts or a single strike as reply is a war, and then this kind of thing will help to use the cognizance applied as optimization through the wild data Atj European service in something relevant, as we told in the very beginning, to prevent the cognitive bias. This week we had the Monday was the risk management, and we presented the architecture as compliance in Brazil for results, considering even the impeachment by Article 85 of the Brazilian Constitution. Observed that the Article 84 clauses 6, 7, and 8, if I'm doing no wrong, is about the presidential chair that must do the institutional dialogue representing the Brazil and the Brazilian Republic that couldn't accomplish the guarantees internationally required and also the commitment as development of mankind. And Brazil has one of the most higher tax index at the planet, but is still crawling for investment at the World Bank. This year seems that happened again, and it's putting Brazil as an interface to redistribute the public investment system and now the international investment system, general for criminal purposes like terror, drugs, paramilitary. This kind of information you must request at the G20. You are investor, not something that is doing a donation. You have the right to get your payback. And the call is made against the person that she tried this investment, like a punch card. You know what I mean? So on Wednesday, and then we have the required claims. We had Thursday was the compliance and economic and financial control as theory. We posted and the Friday was required to consider the wild data tax at courts of justice having this use. The last thing we had was this model here is very helpful to understand that the patterns we have are general, and having the summary is the integrated fail that will be noticed at the workflow as department or office with an empty space collinear at the legitimacy but by the wrongdoing made unveiled, the misconduct as function at the records we have. It's something quite clear here. It's the same thing here when you have your structure failure with interaction. Get one, the interactive trace will get them all. Now we will have this idea here. It's quite simple to get. One more time. We observe that the organization of something illegal in a systemic way and then turn into the integration of system as a pandemic movement always start inside the regular workflow as use of power, covered by fake record, which is the first thing you observe, and then you understand the parallel mobilization. This wasn't unveiled until this time, but the model helped to understand that this thing here, that switched the pattern of all things, gone and still go inside the regular architecture of power as workflow, changing the behavior of the function by the quality of records that set the confusion or the circumstance required at the moment, including the press that receive payment to put facts according with interest. It's not personal. Courtsmen and judges and players making the decisions like the CEO can't consider this. It's like the number of views at your social media that you can make a false record about this. And then you will consider that you will set the misperception about the range as followers of this person or group or activity at the social media. And of course that if this goes inside the relation as financial and investment, it's a fraud against the investor, or in the financial fraud, or at least supporting this as part by causal relation. It's a piece of the white collar crime, considering if you consider the quality of the money circling and wheeling this kind of thing or passing through this kind of thing. Exploitation of prestige and influence based on fake record to run the white collar crime and the economic crimes and laundering scams generally lead to terror, drugs and other things. The exploitation of artists go by exploited artists with tolerance with this kind of thing, or such a huge dependence that can put themselves out, losing the dignity little by little until be part of this entire repulsive criminal system. It's how things are. Then we'll check that the empty space here as an interval during the workflow at period and space, considering the assessments you have and the legitimacy to do that got down by the transparency not accomplished, for instance in Brazil, considering the international cooperation at the security, we unveil the criminal organization inside the security forum. Then we have the intervention as NATO, considering that the equality of Brazil and peers go by the equal behavior and self-determination as institutional dialogue, defaulting guarantees in Brazil at the international application of the local law to call the international law locally applied. In both cases, and we will observe that do not respect premises of the Constitution, not even in Brazil, but also in USA. The treasonous acts continued and kept, having the plea bargain with the clause as clemens, denied by continued acts, indeed, are proving that has no interest in clemency. By the self-confidence of this kind of criminal activity, we observe that the cognoscence indeed helped this way, different side, self-determination, exclusive choice. We will have that the Brazil and USA Security Forum is keep the criminal scam, do not keep the criminal scam. They decided to keep the criminal scam. And it's implied on it that plea bargain, you stop the criminal scam. Do not have the plea bargain, you do not stop and do not want and have the claims. So positions take, since you took the position as institution chairs leading this, exposed by the regressive financial model, face the consequence. In USA and Brazil, the US defensive system must run the things according with the expectations of the American community, all others, including the NATO. The criminal use of power at the defense is paramilitary. Then we observe that the cognos will do the reading of your application and set the kind of thing as empty balls or space with things that start to run a parallel workflow as your machine or instrument. We use the idea as analogical thought by equity to show the relevant issue while data attached and why it suffered so much aggressions until this time, considering the economic espionage, the case claimed as 40 trillion, considering the fees and all other things, plus 12 billion. What we're gonna have here is something like this. We are considering that we put at the center of the show the antitrust justice in the International Criminal Court. We will check that the first thing we observe is that this movement as the codification of things go when I have the regular institution or architecture with a workflow corrupted and viewed as criminal purpose. But since you receive, for instance, the complaint of something that is notorious, like a genocide, or this case is economic espionage and harassment, you will observe that the players inside the function do the records until have the fusification and put things senseless. At this time, you are not having the reading of your instrument or architecture. So you only will have the object as itself. You know that the instrument is cracked, broken, or corrupted as institution. Then you will not consider the arguments or things that are made in general without the decency to be there, but recognize only the fact. Do we have economic espionage? Do we have harassment? Do we have the genocide, which is a massive annihilation? By equity do we have the annihilation of individual? Is this going by the misuse of power? So the facts proven, you can discard the arguments of this if it's notorious, and then you prevent the cognitive bias. The reading of this is to get the workflow. Since you got the workflow and kept them inside, they continue the aggressions, but it's a position refusing the claimants. So now you will apply the consequence by the notorious facts that you are already proven, not considering the effort just qualification or other things, but only the fact as itself, which implies positive 1 exists, 0, 0 do not exist, and then we are preserving and protecting the International Criminal Court and the Antitrust Justice or International Court of Justice about the misconcept of things and the cognitive bias. It's how relevant is this while data taxa. Zero concepts, humble and pro bono, but they can put the interests and guarantees away. So we charge the things legally and regressed from institution until checks that deny it, the benefit as claimants by misuse of power at state level, segmented and very precise and accurate with the accuracy required at the chair level. They must face, in some case, capital consequence as itself. Have a great Saturday.